And that yielding, because Mr. Cohen got here just in the nick of time before you started, and I had promised him he could go next.
You stand by the praise, nonetheless.
Yes, I stand by the praise. I stand by the praise, and
As long as you reiterate it again before I go.
I know you like that stuff. So, Mr. Cohen, yield to you for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I listened to your testimony and appreciate your issue, and I've got a bill on the SOAR bill, which you may know, but Ms. Basham didn't mention it, and I think in a list of bills she mentioned. But I want to ask each of you, have any of y'all heard of either Andrew or Tristan Tate? Ms. Brugman, what do you know about Andrew and Tristan Tate?
I understand that they're accused of sex trafficking internationally, and there's questions about their jurisdiction and their freedom of movement at this time.
Thank you. Anybody else know about them? Ms. Cooper, what do you know about them?
I just am aware of what I read in the news, that there's several cases pending.
And they are social activists and whatever they call them, influencers.
Correct.
Right, and they were, they're no longer having their travel restricted. They were allowed, given their U.S. passports back today, and they flew on a plane allegedly straight to Fort Lauderdale. There is allegations that there was involvement from our administration, the Trump administration, that got Romania and pressured Romania to release them. They've got some pretty serious charges against them for rape and sex trafficking in Romania and also, I think, in England. What do you think the odds of them returning to Romania are after they've been released with their U.S. passports? Ms. Brugman?
My assumption would be very low.
Yeah, thank you. And anybody else have an opinion? Well, that just happened today. It's pretty startling what they've done. They're dual U.S. Canadian, UK citizens, and not good folks. Let me ask you, are you all familiar with, where's my, here I am. Are you familiar with any grants that have been restricted by the Trump administration here in the executive orders that affect your particular area, Ms. Brugman?
Yes, there were grant funding from HHS for direct services for trafficking victims that were halted for about 2 weeks, leaving providers without access to funding and uncertain if they would be able to continue supporting those survivors with housing, food, medical care, legal services. And also, we've seen halting of funding internationally from USAID and the State Department that have ended critical human trafficking work internationally, but also that we're hiring survivors here in the United States as consultants and experts in developing those programs who have lost their livelihood when their contracts were canceled.
And this would be damaging to arresting sex traffickers in the future, would it not?
Absolutely. Without building that capacity and that expertise based on the knowledge of survivors, we're unable to actually effectively stop trafficking, labor, and sex trafficking. Any restriction, any halting, any stopping of that work, of that critical work, is a gift to traffickers.
Any of the other ladies familiar with any grants that might be held up? No. Ms. Brugman, you've been an expert in this. Do you think your being an expert in this area makes you more likely to be aware of these issues than if you were an expert in rocket propulsion or electric cars?
Yes, of course.
Thank you. The DOJ office that administers the Office of Victims of Crime and the Office of Violence Against Women and the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency, all of which fund important anti-trafficking exploitation programs, they've been threatened to be slashed as well. Are you familiar with that?
Yes, sir. We're very concerned about the ideas that those offices, the staff would be slashed. We need those staff to help administer these grants and make sure that the funding continues to move forward, that everything is reviewed and programs are provided with the support they need.
And when we look at budgeting, and we've been given by the judiciary areas of over $100 million to look at budgeting, do you think these areas are more important to stop sex trafficking than building a border wall?
I do.
Thank you. I'd like to mention my bill that I had introduced to reauthorize the SOAR Act, which was to give people training to identify people that have been sex trafficked It was law. We got it passed through the House. It stopped in the Senate for funding problems, but it's been reintroduced. And I hope that y'all would encourage your senators to support it. It failed last time for whatever reason. And the House had passed through pretty much unanimously. It was successful between September 2017 and 2023. They hosted more than 200 events and trained over 260,000 healthcare professionals across the country. So thank you very much, and thank you for your testimony.
Gentleman's time's expired. Chair now recognizes the gentleman from California, Mr. Kiley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you to the witnesses for